Recording is running, and I will share the screen first. All right, yeah. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Keptn Dev meeting. As usual, today it's more focused on the features and capabilities that have been implemented from the Keptn core team, meaning that we will go over a couple of pull requests and issues that were implemented in the last 2 weeks. But let's just have a brief look at the agenda. There are no action items listed here, but still the shout out and the question for a code owner of our repository for the notification service. When someone in the community wants to take over code ownership of this repo, meaning to maintain it and to take care of pull requests, new features and enhancements, then please reach out to us, and we are happy to assign it to you so that this repo is gets someone who owns it and is the maintainer of it. All right, yeah. The key announcement for today is that Keptn 0.8.3 will be released by tomorrow. Let's just have a very brief look into the release notes. As usual, you will find them on GitHub, but let me just point out the main features that are released by this release. First of all, we allow now customization of the remediation sequence, meaning that before Keptn 0.8.3, you were not able to customize your remediation sequence. You had to use that one that was built into the remediation service, and now you can model it via the Shipyard configuration. And for doing that, or when you want to also upgrade from Keptn 0.8.2 and 0.8.3 without losing the capabilities of the remediation sequence, then it's now necessary that you copy paste this sequence, which is shown here, into your Shipyard and into the stage of where you want to enable this remediation sequence. And then the workflow works as laid out here. First, you will take a look into the remediation.yaml file to get the action that is correlated to the problem that was coming in. Then you execute the action, and after the execution, evaluation is done. And now you also have the chance to tell the Shipyard controller to wait a couple of minutes before triggering this evaluation. And this is now possible with the triggered after flag. And you can also tell the Lighthouse service the time that should be taken for the evaluation time frame. This is here by an additional property, but we will hear a little bit more about that feature in a second. And with this sequence in place, you have still the capabilities of auto remediation and fixing or resolving problems that occurred for a service. Another change or improvement was that we removed the limitation of the service name from, I think it was 15 characters, now 43 characters. We lifted to 43 characters, meaning that you can now have services that have a service name up to 43 jars. And for all of those that are using custom Helm charts and are deploying those, we now provide the feature that allows you to explicitly define the public and the local deployment URL, and therefore you can make use of this endpoints.yaml file you provide in the Keptn repository, and this one is then used to deploy your custom Helm chart by using the endpoints defined in this file. All right, yeah, those are the 3 key announcements of the upcoming release. And as soon as you have upgraded, we are looking for feedback and also your ideas or thoughts on the features that are coming. All right. And without talking more about the release, I want to directly hand over to the first one in the list, who is Christian, who will show us what he has done or implemented the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's start with something that's related to the release notes. And there's basically 3 pull requests listed here for the update of the SLO, SLI file, the Shipyard YAML, the tutorials, and the spec. I only show the one for the examples because the other ones are basically, yeah, they go hand in hand by what I'm showing you here. So essentially, what do you need to change? And this is maybe something for the release notes, Johannes. In the Shipyard, you should upgrade to the correct API version, which is 0.2.2. And then, as Johannes said, you need to copy paste the so-called remediation sequence for your stage. In this case, in our examples, it's the production stage. And last but not least, if you are using Dynatrace, there is a new SLI available, or actually the SLI itself is not new, but the new workflow that we have allows good usage of it, and it's called Problem Open. And that essentially allows you to query the number of open problem events. And we force this, in our example, we force this to be 0. So basically, the evaluation step you see here, after the action has been executed, you wait 10 minutes and the evaluation step will then make sure that problem open equals to 0. And if it doesn't equal to 0, then our implemented loop here, well, starts again, and well, the remediation action get executed based on that loop. But that's something that has been presented in, I think, 2 weeks ago by Florian or Bernd. As I said, the tutorial and the spec change go hand in hand with this example.
Christian,
Yeah.
the comment you made on the API version, currently it's not documented in the upgrade instructions, but we should add them there.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
So I don't think it's let's say blocking, but it would be best practice that you specify this here. All right. Yeah, as I said, there's also a documentation update, but I want to show you some quick hints in our documentation because I had to change it a little bit. So when you enter the docs for Keptn 0.8 and you click on Manage, there is this part that says Shipyard, and this wasn't really defining or declaring how the shipyard looks like and what it is. It was rather a guide on how to update the shipyard, and I've converted it into a more well, I've posted more definitions and stuff like that in here. So this should be your entry level when you're interested in how to write your own shipyard. And looking at my last comment, we also need to update this here. Essentially, what do we say here? We say, hey, this is a stage. This is how you can define a stage. This is how you define a sequence in a stage or in multiple stages and link them. And there are some reserved tasks. If you think you've seen this before, you're right. But this is something that was hidden in the continuous delivery documentation here for multi-stage delivery. And that's why I moved it out. And with that change, I also added a little bit of docs for the remediation part that Johannes also has already shown us in the release notes. So when you go here to automated operations and remediation config, we are also providing a shipyard, again, with the wrong API version. But we're also providing a shipyard, in this case, just a single stage production with a remediation sequence in here. So if you just want to try out this new feature, how the remediations work, then that would be the way to go. It also tells you how the remediation YAML file needs to look like. And I think it also tells you how to edit. Yeah. So this is basically, yeah, the doc change for the remediation or for the closed loop remediation. Then I did some fixes to the Dynatrace SLI service in with regards to a response time degradation that I detected in it. It's not worth looking at the code. It's essentially just some Go routine that I'm calling now instead of executing the function directly. But it did solve the response time degradation. So yeah. The next one I want to show, this is the switching projects without losing context in Keptn's bridge. So let me open my bridge here quickly. So what did you do before? You go to your project and you go to the sequence screen and like you scroll through some of the sequences and then you decide you want to go to a different project. And so like, let's say I go to sock shop, and what would happen is that you jump back to the so-called environment screen. And I have adapted this little drop down here. So if you are on a sequence screen, for instance, and you go to the sock shop to another project, then you stay on a sequence screen and you basically get immediately all the sequences here. And the same is obviously true for the services screen. I think this one is better because you can see here the services that are running. I can go to another project and it immediately updates the services that I'm seeing here. Okay, then this one Johannes also already said something about. I still want to show you a little bit of the details about this change. So it might sound weird. We allow service names of up to 43 characters, right? So what's behind that? Um, there's a limitation in help charts, and I think it basically goes way back to an old Kubernetes version where your service names needed to be below 53 characters due to some DNS limitations. Unfortunately, this limitation has still carried on to modern Kubernetes and Helm, and it's not possible to lift this. But then you might see, okay, 53 characters, why not 53 and why do we have 43? So we when we do blue-green deployments, we generate service names, and these service names have the name dash generated in it. And that's, if you can count, I think that's 10 characters if I'm not mistaken. So that's an additional 10 characters we need to reserve for Keptn. However, in previous versions of Keptn, we had this whole long service name called project stage service dash generated, which basically restricted the service name length to whatever your project and stage was. And that could have been as low as 0 characters if your project and stage name were quite long. Nevertheless, with my change, we still use this template, but we fall back to this template step by step if the service name is too long. So we need this still to be backwards compatible. So everyone that has projects and stages and services that fit so far, they will still fit in this schema. And if you create a new project with a very long service name, then this schema will be used. Any questions to that change? Okay. Last but not least, there is one more change for Keptn's bridge. So the index.html file was delivered with a caching header of 7 days. I just want to show you the code change because this might appear in the future version again. And I think it's quite okay that we look into it. So the fix is easy. The fix is like overriding the set headers function here for Express and saying if your file ends with an HTML extension, then set the header cache control to no cache. Else, it would have the max age of 1 week, or as it is here, max age of 1 week, which is fine if you think about static files like images, JavaScript, CSS files, because as they're built with Angular and with Webpack, they have a cache buster in the name anyway, so that should work fine. But for the index HTML, it doesn't have a cache buster, and probably also other HTML files, they need to be delivered without being cached. Any questions on that? Okay, then I'll hand over to Ermin.
Cool, thank you very much. I'm going to present you 2 pull requests from my side for the Keptn's bridge. One is about the remediations that are showing in the bridge due to the changes in the remediation workflow. Yeah, we had to fix some things in the bridge, and especially everywhere where the problem or the remediation is visible to the user. In this case, the environment screen. In the service screen, we see also the status and the sequence screen, which shows the remediation sequence. I have here an environment where I have in my production environment, currently, as we can see, a remediation action running. And as you can see here, the problem is failure rate increase on web service. And there is an action running toggle feature flag enable promotion to off. And since this is still running, there is no evaluation result here there. So there we show the loading icon. And in case that there are multiple remediation steps, actions actually implemented, and the first one is already finished, then you would see the result of the first one here, and that the second one is running. Actually, as we can see, there seems that there is a problem here. I already know where this is coming from, but yeah, we will see it in the sequence screen in a minute. Also in the services screen, when I click on the service, oh yeah, of course now it's not working correctly, probably because of the problem event that was there. Yeah, it should also show here the latest evaluation result, which would yeah, indicate the problem that we have currently there. And let's have a look in it. Yeah, we have here my remediation action that was running, and we had not yet the evaluation, so that's why the service screen was also not showing the correct result. And the problem that we have here, also the problem itself was yeah, triggered by Prometheus service, and this one is also showing up here in the environment screen, which is why we have here now 2, and now it's going 3 entries. So as you can see, for the remediation itself, the first action didn't pass. It shows me the evaluation result, and now the second action is running here. Yeah, at the moment. Yeah, are there any questions?
Ermin, I didn't get it why I do have 2 problems here, or why is this
actually
is the environment?
that's a small bug that we see right now. I haven't seen it before. Also, the problem event itself, which is here, is identified as a remediation or as a problem in the environment screen. And of course, this is started but never finished. And since it's not finished, it's also showing up in the environment screen. But this needs to be filtered because this problem event itself triggers a remediation sequence, and therefore I need to filter those problem events in the bridge so it doesn't show up here again. Yeah, here we can see it. This is actually the problem event, which is not finished, of course, because yeah, there is no finished event for the problem itself, but the problem event will trigger a remediation sequence, and that's the one that should show up here. Yeah, that's regarding the remediation cleanup. Yeah, second, I already presented 2 weeks ago the support of more advanced staging environments. One thing that we enhanced here is the visualization of this stage tiles. As you have already seen here in my running bridge, the size of these tiles is also larger now and fixed. So for example, if you see here 3 stages, you get a scroll bar, and yeah, so you have more details visible here, and we have more space for the service name, the version, and also the latest sequence that was executed in this stage for this artifact. Also, in case that you have the same trigger for multiple stages, it will stack them vertically. As you can see here in this screenshot, for example, we have here 3 production environments, A, B, and C, and they all have the same parent. So they all have the same trigger in the Shipyard YAML configured. Then the bridge will align them and stack them and show that they are in parallel. One more thing that I would like to mention is that during this sprint, we have discussed and also provided already a suggestion for customization of Keptn's bridge, where we will allow to customize several parts of the bridge, like the logo, background colors, and the title of the application itself. This was a research task, and now we will have follow-up issues to provide the necessary steps and documentation how to customize the Keptn's bridge. So this is ongoing. Yeah, that's from my side. So I'm handing over to Johannes.
Okay. I was working on one issue in this sprint, which is about the upgrade from 0.8.2 to 0.8.3. And I want to actually emphasize and mention here a couple of things. I already did, but again, at this time, it's important that you also update the Shipyard in case you want to have remediations enabled. And therefore, we provide the instructions here in step 2. Step 1 is the normal upgrade where you download the Keptn CLI, you do the Keptn upgrade command, and your Keptn control plane is then upgraded automatically. This is what you are used to. And now in step 2, it's all about updating the Shipyard configuration. And what you have to do technically or basically is that you copy paste this snippet, which defines the remediation sequence. You copy paste that one. You go to your Keptn installation, you open up on the Git repository that is hosted on an upstream. In my case, it's on GitHub. And then on the master branch, you will find the Shipyard of your project. You go there and you edit this file. And in my particular case, I want to add this remediation sequence to my production environment for customer A. And you just do a paste, copy paste. And one thing you have to change, this is the name of the stage. And in my case, it's the production minus customer minus A stage. And this is what you have to adapt here. And when you are done, or when this is done, you just save it and you're good to go for having remediations enabled then for this particular environment. Just as a sanity check and before going on, please make sure that the indentation is correct. I double checked it with the snippet, but still make sure that it fits and it's aligned with the other sequences in this stage. All right. It's the copy paste command, and then you change the name of the stage, as I said, and make sure that everything is aligned. And here provide an example how it has to look like. And please follow that one to make sure that everything is working then properly. Okay, this was the issue that I was working on. Then I would like to hand over to Florian.
All right, thank you.
Oh, didn't I stop share? Sorry, here.
Now it's working. All right. Okay, today I want to show you 3 pull requests that I've worked on in this sprint. So the first one is for the Shipyard controller, support sequence loops. So let's quickly go to the issue to see what that's all about. So that was actually a feature that's necessary for supporting the new remediation sequences, because the way it's going to work is basically we have the remediation YAML that will be used by the remediation service. And here for a specific problem type, we do have the possibility to define a set of actions that should be executed one after another. So the way this is going to work is if we have a problem, for example, for the response time degradation, the Shipyard controller, if we have a look at this sequence, will send out the get action task, which will be picked up by the remediation service, also with the name or the title of the problem. We'll check the title and see which action it's going to, which action should be executed first. In that case, it will return the first action, scaling. Then that action will be executed by whatever service will be responsible for handling this task. And then after some time, that's missing here. So we do have now the possibility to define a waiting time before the next task is going to be started. So for example, if we define a value of 10 minutes here, after 10 minutes, the evaluation will be triggered. The Lighthouse service will check the SLO file and also check whether there are any open problems. If you're using the Dynatrace SLI service, you have the possibility to do so. And then when the evaluation is successful, the remediation will be complete. But otherwise, when the evaluation was not successful, so the evaluation result was failed, then that sequence will be triggered again. And then in that case, the remediation service will return the next action that should be executed, and the whole iteration starts again. So executing the action, waiting, evaluating, and checking whether this has been successful. So let's have a quick look at my bridge to see how that looks like in practice. So we do have a remediation sequence open here in our production stage. And if we expand this, so we have 2 iterations of the remediation sequence here, the first one and the second one. So in the first one, the get action triggered event was sent to the remediation service. Then that executed with the first action to be executed for that problem. In that case, it was the toggle feature action where we set the enable promotion to off, and that was executed. And then afterwards, after 10 minutes, the evaluation was performed. And in that case, it failed. In that case, it failed because we didn't have a time frame specified for the Lighthouse service. So I will come back to that specific problem in my next pull request I want to discuss. But anyway, for now, let's just focus on the fact that the evaluation failed. And if you recall, the Shipyard I showed earlier, we would like to trigger the remediation again if the evaluation result was in fact failed. And that's exactly what happened here. So then the next action was fetched. In that case, I just specified the same action twice in the Shipyard. So that's why the toggle feature enable promotion was set to off again. And then in the meantime, I've deployed the correct version of the Lighthouse service so it could actually handle the incoming evaluation that triggered event. And in that case, the evaluation was successful. So we can also check here. So here is the second evaluation. And here our score was had a value of 100, and the remediation was successful. All right, are there any questions about that pull request or issue? If not, let's continue with the second one. So that one affected the Lighthouse service. So here we needed the possibility to allow a time frame to be set in evaluation of triggered events. So let's go to the issue. So basically what the Lighthouse service did before this pull request was to check if the evaluation triggered event contained a start and an end property. And if those were available, it performed an evaluation for exactly that time range. But for the remediation use case, if you recall the example I showed earlier in the bridge, we would also like to just wait a couple of minutes until we trigger the evaluation. And in the Shipyard file, in the evaluation task, we wanted to be able to specify just the time frame that we want to have evaluated. So in that case, we always want to look at the last 10 minutes. So that's also what's specified as a property in the Shipyard file. And in the Shipyard file, of course, we don't always want to update the exact start and end timestamp to their actual values. So we want to only provide the time frame of 10 minutes. And that's what has been added to the Lighthouse service in that case, and also to the corresponding evaluation.triggered event. So actually here we see how that change affected the behavior of the Lighthouse service. So in the first iteration, I had the old version of the Lighthouse service deployed, where it couldn't handle this time frame property that was set to 10 minutes. But afterwards, after implementing and deploying this pull request, the Lighthouse service was now able to handle that. So again, here we also passed the time frame of 10 minutes. And in that case, the Lighthouse service correctly interpreted this value of 10 minutes and sent out the correct get SLI event with the correct time frame. So in that case, we were interested in the time frame from 1349 to 1359. And the Dynatrace SLI service retrieved those values, and the Lighthouse service was able to evaluate those SLI. All right. Are there any questions about that? All right, if not, let's continue with the next one. So that was an extension for the Helm service. So in the last version of Keptn, we already had the possibility to do the deployment task using the user managed deployment strategy. So before that, we only supported direct and blue-green. But in case you would like to just deploy a Helm chart as it is, the user-managed deployment strategy was the way to go. And one limitation of that previously was that the Helm service, since it didn't have any, couldn't make any assumptions about the format of the chart that was deployed, couldn't derive the deployment URI local and the deployment URI public properties. And because of that, those properties were also not excluded in the deployment.finished event once it was done with deploying the Helm chart. And the way we address that is we now have the possibility of using the Keptn add resource command to deploy a so-called endpoints.yaml file that should be located in the Helm under Helm/endpoints in your service directory in your GitOps repo. And afterwards, if you trigger a deployment using the user managed deployment strategy, the Helm service will look for that file and then include the values that are specified here in the correlating deployment finished events. So I think I do have an example here. Yes, so here we have the user managed project where we triggered the delivery sequence. So yeah, so the first example here was, I think, an example where we didn't upload the endpoints.yaml file before deploying. So in that case, the deployment will still work, but in that case, those properties will be missing. And what I did afterwards, before triggering the next delivery sequence, I uploaded this file, and then the Helm service did its thing, fetched the endpoints.yaml file, and in that case, it was able to determine the URIs and include them in the deployment and finished event. And those deployment URIs could now be used by the next task execution service, like the JMeter service, in order to execute the tests against those URIs. And yeah, maybe really quickly, let's show how the structure of this endpoints.yaml file looks. So I think I have it somewhere in the pull request here. Yeah, it's not really pretty in that way, but here in the integration test for this feature, which is written in Go, that's basically the structure of the endpoints.yaml file. So it's just a deployments URIs local property, and then which is an array of strings, and the same is for the holds for the deployment URIs public. So here can also pass an array of URLs your application will be reachable on once it is deployed. Okay. Are there any questions about that?
I have a question, Flo. Would it be possible, or does it make sense to include a result of type warning of the deployment finished events in case you forget to upload the endpoint YAML file? Because otherwise, for the user, if he doesn't do that, I think he's quite in the dark why things are not working.
So for the first case we have here, right? So
yes,
we don't have it available. Yeah, it's actually a good idea. So I think that would make it easier to pinpoint the problem in case you have overlooked.
I think what's a result or status has a property warning, I think, or is it status?
Yeah, we can set the result to warning here.
The result to warning, yes, with a message. Oh, hey, you probably forgot unintentionally to upload the endpoint YAML file, so you don't have those URIs.
Absolutely, I think that's a good idea. All right, I think those were all issues I wanted to discuss. In that case, I will hand over to Elizabeth.
You're muted, Elizabeth.
I clicked on the button. Didn't want to talk, I think. Yeah, as you have seen in the notes already, I have just smaller quality of life improvements. This I will just read quickly. So, first of all, the approval process is visible again. So if there is an open approval, it's marked with the question mark. I think this already worked, but now it's visible again. I think this is very nice for recognizing. It's also the approval box is now available on all screens, including the service screen, as well as here. So yeah, this I think improves the user experience. What's also added is the is a link to the stage execution. So you can, if you, for example, see that there is a problem or an approval open, you can just go to the sequence directly from the environment screen. Yeah. And also the second link that was added was here in the service screen. There's the view service execution button now. This is actually the first step of improving the empty screen. So I think there will be stories in the future to show more information. This was the first step, and yeah, as you can see, you can also directly jump to the executed sequence from there. Yeah, I think that's all, and I will hand over to Klaus if there are not
No,
questions. Yeah,
just one question, but I think
Yeah.
that we also have this issue in the backlog that for me it's not a little bit difficult to see which sequence is actually selected.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult. I think you just have to guess which one, but we will provide improvements to also highlight more prominently which
Yeah.
one is currently you're looking at currently selected.
Yeah, I know. I think the issue is actually from me because I also
Mhm.
struggled with it. So yeah, I made a proposal and we will see when it gets implemented. Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, then I will hand over to Klaus.
Okay. So for me, I implemented the remediations in the service screen so that the service screen also shows remediations. As you can see, the card service now shows an warning icon if there is a running remediation. If I expand it, I see which deployment has the active remediation running. And in the timeline, I see the warning icon next to the stage. When I click the remediation, on the arrow icon, I can see the open remediations. And as you can see, there's a running remediation for failure rate increase. And yeah. Also, we can see the remediation config there. When we expand it, we see the remediation point YAML file. And yeah. And also we have a link to view the active remediation. So this redirects here. Yes, so that's basically it. Next to that, maybe to mention, there's also a deep link for that. So also refreshing and refresh the page now. The remediations is still selected. Yeah, that's basically it. Any questions? Maybe to mention this thing, yeah, there also shows the evaluation of the remediation if there was any.
And now let's assume the remediation is finished and closed, then the icon disappears, the red one?
Yes, the icon ends this entry because of open remediations. I have an interval for 30 seconds that's polling again the open remediations and clears the one that are closed.
Mm-hmm. All right. And in case the remediation failed, then it also does not show up here and the icon goes away.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's only related to open remediations.
The running ones. Mm-hmm. Got it, thanks.
Okay. So, I guess not more questions.
No, then I think we can move on to the next one on the list. It's burned, when I'm not mistaken. a guest and someone who's new to the community. Let me just change the permission. Yeah, allowed to talk. Hi, Prayak. I hope I pronounced you correctly. Hi and welcome to the Keptn community.
Yeah, is my sound fine?
Audio is fine. Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for having me here. Let me join this meeting. So I had came across this project via the mentorship program, and I'm going to discuss related to the issue that I've linked. And that I understood the webhook part of the user story that that's being written here, that's been written here, but I didn't quite understand the templating part of this. Yeah.
Let me just explain you what was the what is meant by the templating. Well, Keptn will always send out so-called cloud events, Keptn cloud events. These one follow a specific specification, and the endpoint that is then used for the webhook looks different or may takes a payload that has another structure. And with the templating mechanism, it should be a mechanism that takes a Keptn cloud event, translate it over to the payload that is understood by the webhook, which will then be called. And this is the way that you then can customize how the data is sent from Keptn to the endpoint you are referring to. It's kind of the translation layer between what Keptn understands and what the webhook understands.
Yeah, so by templating, I'm trying to create a custom cloud event.
Correct. Yeah, you take the Keptn cloud event and translate it into a custom event or a custom payload.
Right, right. And one more question is that it is mentioned here, like the feature mentioned here can be used by the generator executor service. So if I have to understand like the whole not the implementation but the use of this feature, is there like a project or a tutorial where I can see how the generator executor service is used to basically emulate this feature, which we have to implement in Keptn itself?
The generic executor service. Let me just go to that one. Yeah, that one is a service that allows you to execute any kind of job, based on a Keptn cloud event. And this one would also then be could be the basis for implementing then a webhook service. But I'm currently not aware of an example that shows you how this generic service is used.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, thanks again for your time. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
But I can also give you more tips on working also for integrations, because what we do have is in the Keptn sandbox organization, there is the, let me just search it real quick, template. Yeah, here it's pinned. The Keptn service template, which is also written in Go. And this one is also a very good starting point for writing your Keptn service, which will be eventually the webhook service. And because this template already provides the mechanism for the event handling and also handler functions that just need to be implemented or just need to be overwritten for your code or for your purpose that you want to implement. This is also a good starting point next to the generic executor service, which is already a working service.
Okay, yeah.
Let me
so thanks for pointing that out. Yeah,
let me just
I'll make sure to go through that.
add it here so that you have a reference. starting project or starting project for a Keptn integration. All right. Let me just go back. Does this clarify your questions? The first one was about the templating and the second one about the generic executor.
Yeah, it does. And I'll make sure to go through what you shared and then maybe come back if I have more questions.
Okay, feel free. You can also reach out to Jürgen or myself via Slack. Just ping us,
I'm on
and
the Slack
we'll
community.
help you to get your questions clarified.
Sure.
Yeah. Then thanks for joining. Actually, we are at the end of the agenda for today. And yeah, are there any other questions, feedback? If not, then let's close the session for this week. Thanks for joining in. Stay tuned for the Keptn release, the upcoming one tomorrow. And yeah, have a nice day and see you next week then. Bye.
Bye-bye.